My mind cracked before the technology did. I'm the billionaire who discovered Atlas III. I was a threat to my consciousness. I stood alone on the rooftop observatory of a glass hotel in Dubai. The city's neon arteries burning far below my feet, the warm desert night pressing against my skin like an unspoken question. Above the jagged skyline, Atlas III, I drifted low on the horizon, an elongated, scarred rock veined with slow pulsing teal fractures that looked less like ice and more like breathing. I could not look away. I told myself this was only astronomy and accumulated stress. For 2 decades I had built empires that turned human beings into data points and called it clarity. Tonight my hands betrayed me. They would not stop trembling. Every pulse from the comet sent a corresponding twitch through my ribcage, as if something inside me recognized the rhythm before my mind could deny it. My mother's voice rose uninvited. Feelings are distractions. Control is survival. I repeated the mantra silently, but the wind scattered the words like smoke. I walked to the edge. The city sprawled beneath me like a circuit board, every tower a line of code I owned. I had always been proud of that view. Tonight it looked like a prison I had engineered myself. Behind me the private lounge glowed in cold white. Telescopes, monitors, a sleek console running along the curved window. I forced myself inside, chasing numbers, something I could still dominate. The air conditioning hummed, yet the back of my neck burned. I woke the main console. Screens flared. Live telescope feeds, rotational graphs, orbital projections. For 3 heartbeats everything appeared normal. Then every line froze. Color bled out. All that remained was darkness and, at its center, a single point of light. My pulse slammed into my throat. I reached for the controls. My fingers froze mid-air. The points split once, twice into 3 perfect points. They arranged themselves into an equilateral triangle, and began pulsing in absolute synchrony with the fractures outside the glass. Each pulse traveled through the console into my palms. Too deliberate. Too intimate. Heat flooded my chest. Breathing turned shallow. I tried to blame a software glitch, but a quieter voice already knew the truth. This was not coming from my machines. My machines were only the messenger. My mother flashed behind my eyes, standing over me at the piano. Her shadow swallowing the keys, correcting every imperfect note with surgical calm. Imperfection, she taught me, was a threat. I had spent my life erasing it. The room held steady. My heart raced for no reason I could name. And the world beyond the windows dissolved. Dubai's sharp towers softened into mist. In their place appeared a different city, quiet streets, warm evening light, people moving slowly, touching without calculation, speaking face to face. Children laughed in open courtyards while adults sat in small circles, hands resting gently on one another's shoulders. No one hurried. No one performed. I saw myself there, older, unguarded, sitting on a simple bench, listening. I looked peaceful, not powerful. Peaceful. Then the vision snapped. Dubai roared back, louder and colder than before. I staggered, gripped the console to stay upright. A single tear slid down my cheek before I could execute the usual deletion. I wiped it away with violent precision, exactly the way she had trained me, but the anger felt brittle now. Underneath it was something rawer, grief. The console vibrated again. The triangle had evolved. Thin lines now stretched between the points, forming a fractured music staff, the same crooked staves I had stared at for hours as a child under her watch. Along the edges, coordinates glowed. I knew those numbers instantly. They were not random. They pointed to one forgotten neighborhood in the city where I was born, to one specific building, the old conservatory where my mother used to teach. I had not crossed that threshold since the night. I walked out at 17 and swore I would never again beg for anyone's approval. Every screen, every device I owned, smartwatch, phone, the tower itself now carried the same silent heartbeat. Atlas III, I pulsed outside the glass, perfectly matched to the triangle on the display. I felt the rhythm in my bones. I had spent my life weaponizing my mind as a shield. For the first time I understood. The invasion was not aimed at the sky or the markets. It was aimed at me. The coordinates locked into place like a verdict. My chest ached with a weight I no longer wanted to carry. I did not yet know what waited inside that abandoned music room. But I knew one thing with crystalline certainty. This was not an accident. This was an invitation I could no longer refuse. I left the rooftop without my coat. The hallway's air conditioning struck like a slap, but I barely felt it. My heart was hammering so violently it seemed determined to tear itself free. I didn't want to go back there. I hadn't crossed that threshold in 23 years. Yet my body was already moving, as if the choice had been taken from me the moment the coordinates appeared. The elevator sealed me inside. On my tablet, the triangle glowed 3 clean lines, faint blue, almost beautiful. It looked harmless now, but every pulse tightened my throat. That shape belonged to childhood afternoons spent under fluorescent lights, where a single wrong note was treated like a moral failure. A driverless Maybach waited at the curb. The door opened before I reached it, as though the car itself had been expecting me. I hesitated, hand trembling against the frame. My mother's voice cut through the years, sharp as ever. Focus, control, nothing less than perfect. I slid into the back seat. The moment the door closed, the car pulled away from the hotel and plotted its own course Dubai to a small, rainy city on the other side of the world. 23 hours of flight I would not remember, a Gulf Stream that crossed oceans while I sat motionless, staring at the triangle that refused to dim. Sometime after the second refueling, somewhere over the black Atlantic, the cabin lights dimmed on their own. The triangle on the tablet grew until it filled the screen, then shrank again slower, matching the new, deliberate rhythm of my heart. The threat was no longer out there among the stars. It had slipped inside the cabin with me. It was sitting in my chest. Touchdown. Rain. A different continent. Another silent EV collected me at a private strip and carried me through streets I had spent a lifetime trying to forget. Jasmine trees still lined the narrow road leading to the conservatory. Their heavy night scent flooded the car and dragged me back to every silent ride home after a failed recital. The vehicle stopped. The gates were exactly as I remembered them, black iron, slightly crooked, moonlight catching on flakes of old paint. My reflection in the window looked 15 years younger, a boy who still believed perfection could save him. I hated that the comet had brought me here. I hated more that some part of me had wanted to come. My hand found the door handle. For a long moment, I did nothing. Then something inside me, something older than fear, unlocked. The fear was still there, but it no longer felt like punishment. It felt like the first honest thing I had felt in decades. I stepped out into the rain. The car door closed behind me with a soft, final click. I walked forward. The gravel crunched under my shoes once, twice, then stopped. I was home. And for the first time, the word did not feel like a prison sentence. The rain on my face was cold, but it did not feel like rain anymore. I had crossed the courtyard and pushed open the heavy door of the conservatory. Moonlight spilled through broken skylights, painting silver bars across the dusty floor. The grand piano stood exactly where it always had, black, silent, waiting. I walked to it like a man walking to his own trial. My shoes left wet prints on the parquet. I sat. The bench creaked the same way it had when I was 9. My fingers found the keys without permission. I pressed a single note, middle C, imperfect, slightly out of tune, alive. The note rang out and did not fade. Instead it grew, swelling until the entire hall vibrated with it. Dust danced in the moonlight. The air thickened, turned warm. The scent of jasmine gave way to salt. The walls dissolved. Suddenly I was barefoot on a night shoreline that had never existed on any map. Waves arrived in slow, deliberate breaths. The sky above was vast and star-drunk, and there low on the horizon hung Atlas 3I, its teal fractures now arranged into the same broken triangle that had hunted me across continents. It was no longer watching me. It was holding space for me. I unbuttoned my shirt without thinking. The wind touched my skin like forgiveness. For the first time in 35 years, the noise in my head went completely quiet. Golden light, soft, unearned, poured across the sand. People moved through it, the way people move in dreams. Slowly, unafraid, hands linked, eyes meeting without defense. Children shaped castles that did not need to impress anyone. Adults listened as if hearing was the only success that mattered. I saw myself among them. Older, lighter, laughing without checking who might be watching. The realization arrived gently, like the tide. The threat had never been the comet. The threat had been the terrified child who believed love was a verdict. My knees folded of their own accord. I sank into the cool sand and looked up. Atlas 3, I pulsed once, slow, deliberate, final like a heart that had carried mine long enough. Tears rose, not from sorrow but from recognition. They filled my eyes, trembled, and without shame fell. I did not wipe them away. I let the sky see me. Back in the empty conservatory, miles and years away, the single out-of-tune note finally faded into silence. But I was no longer there to hear it end.